Welcome to yet another episode on the Words Best Kept Secret podcast. I'm excited you made it today. A recent guest made me aware or made me realize that the person that comes to this podcast is the called for more human being. It didn't occur to me before. I had so many names. I had for the person that follows this podcast, but he was like, no, Prima, you're for the called for more type of person. In fact, I dare to say you're for the called for more entrepreneur. So you are an entrepreneur, you probably left your job and you just feel called for more. You may not know what that more looks like, but you just feel called for more. You may not know the how, but you're called for more. And so what I became clear of in the past episode when I interviewed my guest was like, when you feel called for more, you often don't know how that is going to come to life. You often just feel this pull in your heart, but you're like, how do I get there? And even when you say yes to the call, you often get stuck, like you don't know what the next thing is. And what I came to realize is that God is called me to answer that how for people. And so if you feel called in whatever capacity, your job is to say how, to say why, and the how is in the experts that I bring on the show. It didn't occur for me until my last interview. And so I'm excited that would be something that I get to facilitate. A conduit for the how for those that are called for more and have answered the call. So if you know someone that is unhappy in their job, they feel called for more, but they do not know the how, and that's holding them back, this podcast may be the thing that gets them to move. And so I'm excited that I have this level of clarity because I didn't have it before. With me today is Ruth, and Ruth is one of the experts that does that work. You have done the job, you have married the man, you have the kids, you have the money. You just still feel a void on the inside. You may be asking the question, is this it? Is this it? Everyone thinks you're successful. People come to you for tips and tricks on how to be successful. But really, when you wake up and look in the mirror, you're asking the question, is this it? Like there's that instinct in you that there's more or something needs to be different, or you just don't feel like it's a life well lived. You don't feel like you have lived your life the way you know you should. And the problem is you don't even know the how it should look like, but you just know it's not it. And so Ruth is one of those people who has the how. How do you move forward from that? But what you have to do is answer the call that is saying this is probably not it. Once you say yes, now you start to see people like Ruth who have the how. So how do we move from that place where you feel unfulfilled to a place where you could be saying this is a life well lived? I don't know how that looks like for you, but for me, if I died tomorrow, I would consider my life well lived because I have answered the calling on my heart, because I have allowed myself to be a conduit for the work that I'm put on this planet to do. So if I die tomorrow, doesn't matter how big this channel is, I would feel like I have lived a life that I wanted to live, which is I said yes to that calling that said you're meant for more, you're built for more. So go out there and be a conduit for my work. I don't know who you believe in. Maybe you believe in God or not. I believe in God. But whoever you believe in, whatever the higher being or the higher calling you believe in, you have to answer the question, is this it? If I died today, would I have a yes to that? Like, is this a life well lived or not? I'm excited to have Ruth on. Ruth, welcome to the show. I'm really excited to be diving in today.
Thank you so much, Prima. And I love your clarity and the capacity that you have just to dive straight into the very heart of things. So thank you for that.
For sure. God doesn't call you to something that he hasn't empowered you to do. And so I feel honored to be able to do this work. I would love for you to talk a little bit about more of what you do, because I feel like I never say it all. And so I would love to hear what I missed out. And as far as your work is concerned, how do you help people?
Okay. Well, I suppose I'll start with the premise that we are multidimensional beings, and so much of our lives are spent focused on pursuing specific material milestones. And as you mentioned in the introduction, we often find that we'll attain a measure of success. And whatever that may look like, we find ourselves feeling a little empty or unfulfilled, or perhaps even we find ourselves a seat at the boardroom table, but inside we don't know how we got there, and we don't feel like we deserve to be there, and we don't enjoy it. And so we attain this outward success. And so the very first thing is actually allowing ourselves to realize that there is something more. And, you know, I call myself a spiritual mentor, but I'm focused on the inner spirit. You know, I believe in God, but, you know, I believe that God comes through us, and that our capacity to self-express is our expression of that spiritual nature. So, you know, when I work with clients, the way that I support people is very much reflective of my own journey. And, you know, and that involves looking at each dimension of our being. And I've broken that down into four main aspects. And so in our sessions, we will go through what I call conscious conversation. And in sort of navigating those conversations, certain things will come to the surface. So, of course, no two sessions look the same, because no two people will bring the same thing to a session. But it's through opening up in these conscious conversations that we can actually access the aspects of our energetic being, of our mental and emotional being, and certain things that are held within our nervous system and our physical body that have guided us to this point in life, the habits and beliefs that meant that this was what we should do in order to succeed in life, or in order to be a good person. And, you know, as we uncover those beliefs, they become actually quite simple to shift. And so I equip my clients with tools. I work with various healing modalities. There's energy work. There's things like EFT tapping and you know, mindset work. So, you know, basic coaching tools. But we go deep into that. And I hold a really potent and transformative space for clients where they're safe and where we easily access those things which are blocking them from stepping more fully into themselves, the part of themselves that they've realized is missing.
I know your work is not for everyone. I'm just wondering, what are the signs and symptoms of how I might be feeling to know that your exact strategy is what I need? Like, on the surface, how does this unfulfillment manifest? For me, I was just unhappy and I just felt disconnected from my job. And when there was an advert for the next rise, I wasn't interested in that. I wasn't interested in climbing the ladder of success. I just knew that it had to look different. And so I went to the job, but I felt like it was just a paycheck kind of motivation. I felt like I was doing the same thing over and over again. I felt like I was dying on the inside slowly. I felt like my creativity was slowly like really dying out. And I felt like I was building a life that wasn't for me. But I wonder, like, what are the things that people need to be feeling, or what are some of the things people can detect to go, I need this work that they are going to dive in? Because I do not really know like what it looks like for everyone. For me, I knew that it was just not it. I just knew that it wasn't the thing I was supposed to be doing. But I wonder how it appears for other people, like clients you've helped. How does it show up for them?
Yeah, I think it's really important what you said about being able to recognize that in yourself. And, you know, you realize that your internal experience was not satisfying or fulfilling. And so it will manifest differently for different people, but in general, it is, you know, often there's anxiety involved. So I work with women who might find themselves in, you know, what the world would see as great careers, great jobs, and there's a deep level of anxiety and what we might even call imposter syndrome. People who perhaps are outwardly strong, but inwardly, when they're faced with choices or conflict, feel deeply conflicted in themselves, scared to make choices, scared to navigate those difficult situations. And they always get through, but it's the extreme feeling of tension and anxiety and people-pleasing. You know, people-pleasing is a big sign. And so I really helped to shift that. But the catalyst for me, so there were two main catalysts for me, and I really relate to what you said. You know, one of them was getting to a point in my life and realizing that if this is all there is, I don't want to really be here. You know, I wasn't suicidal at all, but, you know, it was looking at my life and going, this can't be all there is. And the second thing was that because I hadn't been walking a path which had particularly aligned with my soul, that had provided any meaningful fulfillment, you know, my work was, you know, acceptable in the mainstream, but it didn't nourish my heart in any way. And because of that, I actually started feeling a deep, deep sense of unworthiness. And I looked at the way that I was contributing in the world, and this is my perception. It wasn't necessarily how people outside of me perceived it. But my experience of myself was that I'm not bringing anything to the table. You know, what I know, there's more for me. I know that I want to contribute more, but what is there? You know, and so it was, you know, partially a level of confusion. So that, you know, I didn't know, you know, it's like the mind couldn't come to a solution because it was trying to think logically through something which wasn't a logical answer. It was an answer that had to come from within. It had to come from, you know, deep in inner guidance and following the intuition. And so if people are feeling like there's something more, I would urge people to follow those subtle urges, because it's the subtle urges that will lead you to the profound breakthroughs.
I found that the biggest problem is we all, in the 3D, at least where I lived for most of my life, I needed proof. I needed to see the how. I needed to be clear what I'm trying to do. I needed proof for something that wouldn't be proven. I needed proof for how I was feeling. I needed proof for the new direction. I needed data to verify my feelings. And there wasn't data. I just felt bad and just felt bored by the day. And no matter how much data I tried to get for myself, I couldn't, because everybody was thriving, everyone was going for the next thing, people were happy, and I was just there every day thinking no. And so I would find myself, I was an engineer, I would be monitoring nodes, and in my ears I'll have like 20 robins. And I spent more time when I ate, when I walked, listening to like Brennan Bouchard, Grant Cardone, more than I spent following the, I don't know, the path for the job where I was and what was happening. And so for the biggest time, I wanted to create data for how I felt. I was looking for clues in my neighborhood, in my office, for other people who felt like that. And nobody was with me. Nobody had the calling like I had. It's like my vision was given to me and nobody, not my family, not my mother, not my father, not anybody. And I was looking around for support, and it never came because God didn't give them the vision that he gave me. And so to your point, I think if you feel these things, you feel like you're in the wrong place, you feel like, is this it? Unfortunately for you, there's no proof outside that it's not, because that vision is only yours and it wasn't given to somebody else. So if you try to look after your other people to support you, your husband, your children, anybody, it's probably not going to look good because they don't have the vision. I don't know. That's what I wanted to share there, that it's your vision, it's your calling, it's just with you, and nobody feels the same, and nobody understands it. So don't expect people to come along. Don't expect people to hug you and say, oh my God, go and chase your dreams. Don't expect your husband to smile and say, oh my God, take 5 hours away to build this thing. Don't expect that, because what you might get might be, oh my God, so you mean I never get to see you again because you're building that thing. And that's okay. Like, I feel like there is that point where people might feel the calling, and start to look for proof or support, and that doesn't help. So I wanted to put it out there that don't expect everyone to come with you. But when you say yes, there will be a new support system. There will be a new community. There will be other people who come and give you a hug and say yes. There will be a podcast like this where experts come and affirm to that and say, we got you. We got your hand. Let's go. Let's go this way. And so you have to say yes, though. Otherwise, if you don't say yes, it doesn't happen for you. Is there anything you want to add to that of like getting stuck in the but?
I absolutely agree. And in my personal experience, I had quite an extreme transition or a dramatic awakening. And I for a period I had to be willing to take the steps that look like they were crazy, being bold and being courageous. And as Einstein said, insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. So we really, and it's really confronting to make a choice that is outside of the system of choices that you've always known, because this is essentially breaking our belief systems, breaking the limiting belief systems and the limiting patterns that have created the environment and the experience of life that we're having. So I'm all about empowering people. And the other thing that you mentioned is you're the one who has this dream, and that's so true. And one of our biggest challenges is that very fact. And because the world will offer you a step-by-step manuscript about how to thrive in the corporate world, for example. But when you feel a calling on your heart, or a calling to purpose, which comes from deep within rather than somebody else's script, it takes a lot of courage, and it takes a lot of you have to be really deliberate in your choice to make that to take that step. But what I will speak to, and I know that you'd agree with this, everything lies on the other side of that step. All of your expansion, transformation, fulfillment, all the joy, all the peace lies on the other side of stepping through that portal. And I love using the term fear portal. And basically throughout our life, once you start this journey, once you start tuning in and deepening that connection to your own self-knowing and following your intuition, you're going to be faced with so many different choices to navigate this path. And in looking at those choices, there are going to be, say, for example, a fork in the road. One of them is familiar, one of them is easy, and one of them will take you to where it's going. There's certainty. The other one might be the one that your heart's actually called to. It might be, it might be triggering. It might have some anxiety, but somewhere deep in your being, somewhere there's something drawing you through that. And that portal, that choice portal, is where you expand. So it's through our fear that we actually grow into the person that we're here to be.
I like how you look at it, because this road is definitely not easy. Like, for me, the thing that I'm doing now, which is, I even feel very scared to think that I am having this thing, which is a conduit for the how for people. It's scary for me. I have never seen anyone with a platform that answered the question, I feel called for more. I don't know how to do it. And to think that God wants this through me, it's like being pregnant and thinking I have 7 babies in me. Like, God knows how those babies will survive. And so it can be scary because sometimes no one has done it before. Sometimes the work on your heart is not in the world. So there's no manual, there is no framework, there is no formula for it. It doesn't matter who you ask, they haven't done it. And so they don't know that it even exists. When I meet my coaches right now, they're always like, wow. So how did you come to that? And they're like, wow. They're like just surprised because I just always come up with things, and they're like, okay, but knowing that you're Prima, this is possible for you. And people just say, we're here to support you. They don't even know what the thing is you're building. And they're just saying, what you do need in this stage of whatever you're creating. And they're also on the side saying, wow. So now it's that, wow. imagine being in a situation like that when your coach is like, I can't wait for what you come up with, because they're just impressed by the fact that you're obedient to the calling, and you're like, I have no idea what it will be, and let it be whatever. But it takes some courage, it takes fear, but until you say yes and really get through the fear portal, as Ruth is saying, nothing will change. Ruth, I'd like for you to jump into your story, because I feel like our stories are often like tissue that people can connect to and maybe use to move through this fear of, I do not know what will happen, and yet we are telling them move anyway. Help me through your story so that people can really get to see how that unfolded for you.
Yeah, I'd love to share. Thank you. And for me, it really started, as we were saying, with this, I had a corporate position, I had the relationship I wanted, and I'd always had an interest in, spiritual concepts, a higher mind, so to speak. But I'd always suppressed any sense of intuitive awareness that I had. I always looked for evidence outside of me, and looking for concrete or having somebody else affirm something for me. And so I always pushed that deep knowing aside. And what happened in 2013, or actually started in 2012, is that things just started going awry. This sense of intuition started rising so strongly, and this is where I spoke of the confusion, and my outside world wasn't real, was conflicting with my deeper sense of intuition, and so there was this deep kind of dissonance in my experience, in my lived experience. And that paired with the sense of unworthiness, where I'd come to realize the lack of purpose in what I was doing, and that I wanted to really contribute, not just through my work, but just I knew that there was something deep within me that had to come forth. I had no idea what it was. And so, somehow out of by chance, I was guided to do an energy healing course, a Reiki course. And so for anyone who doesn't know what that is, that's a healing modality where you work with, you draw on universal energy and anchor that to help balance people's energy fields mentally and emotionally. And so that was the first modality that I did. And that started opening things. If you consider that the human body is kind of like a Wi-Fi receiver, or people refer to it as a radio station. So we can tune into all sorts of frequencies, and then that's what will come through this physical body, this vessel. And so after doing the Reiki, I did another healing modality, and it was that one that really opened me up to my own unique, I suppose, radio station. And this is where it started getting a little bit strange. I started getting deeply challenged. Now, I do remember actually after one of these programs, it was really the turning point for me. And I remember getting into the car after the course, and I jumped in on the passenger side, and I sat there, and my partner sort of said, how was the day? And I just started crying and I said to him, I finally know what I'm here for. And at that point, I didn't actually know what that was. I didn't know what it meant, but I knew that I'd connected with the part of me that was in alignment with that sense of purpose. And so if I think back to myself back then, I could not have possibly envisioned the path that unfolded before me. But it was that deep sense of knowing that you're in the right place to walk that path of fulfillment, connection. And it was like coming home. And so after that, then, I remember that this is sort of transitioning from the corporate and being called on by my intuitive knowing to make some decisions around being available for this spiritual work and for anchoring into the energy and I suppose the conscious experiences that I'm now work with. And I specifically remember one morning, I was on my way to work, and all of a sudden I was tapped on the shoulder, metaphorically speaking. And I just knew that I had to make myself available that day. And, I hate, I have a high integrity when it came to work, and I had to take days off, but this energy, this knowing was so strong that I had to actually take the day off and make myself available, for whatever was coming through that day. And that was one of a few days, actually. It happened over the course of about a month. And what ended up happening was that I was drawn to open this receiver that I am and download certain codes and certain energetic frequencies that I was then to anchor into using healing work. And so that was the first time I was faced with a deep fear portal. And my rational mind was telling me, no, you can't take the day off. No, this is just silly. Do it tomorrow or whatever. Wait till the weekend. The intuitive, deep knowing part of me was a presence so powerful and so clear that by following it, I enabled myself to open the rest of my pathway, to open out that purpose and move towards that.
There's a part I want to share, which is on my own journey as well. When I left corporate, I took too long in corporate. So I think I stayed in fear too long because I didn't leave corporate until I felt like it wasn't worth it anymore. I knew that I wanted to do styling. I knew that I wanted to dress people. I had this fashion sense that was very natural to me. And so I knew I wanted to serve people that way. But then what I did instead is I started to bring some stuff in my rucksack. And so I started to dress the people in the office. And that slowly moved into a boot, the boot of my car. And that started to be more profitable than my salary. And when I left my job, I think it was because I had an anchor. And so maybe you need to create an anchor for yourself somehow, or I don't know. But you don't always need the anchor. I think that I stayed too long in that place. I think that if I had left without the proof that the other thing would work, it would still have worked. But I think I took forever. And I remember I did this fashion business, which was very successful. And then COVID came. When COVID came, things shut down. Men were not interested in style anymore. Being in Uganda didn't help because everything is bricks and mortar, give me cash, take your thing. And so I was stuck, and I knew that this wouldn't work because I think that for over a year, we weren't allowed to go out. And then I knew that I needed to do something which didn't involve give me money, take the thing. I had to do something electronic. And I decided I was coming online, which is crazy because internet in Uganda, it can just disappear without notice. Power can disappear without notice. We pay a fortune to have internet connection. Like I have direct fiber running to my house, and that costs a fortune. So everything was against it. Like, how will I do this? But I felt a very compelling pull to come here. And to be honest, I didn't have any other choice because I didn't see my options in Uganda. And I didn't want to get a job. Like I was just done. I said, if I leave my job, I am not going back to corporate. And so I think for me, the fear of going back in a job forced me to come online, even when I didn't know it would work. And I think for me, when I got my first client, my mind started to say, there is nothing that you can't do. You see, you left your job, you didn't die. You've done this online thing. My first client paid me $2,000. Now, $2,000 in Uganda is 8 million. That's enough money to live on for a year. And so for me, when the business started to work and when I started to make my first 6 figures, my mind got like, I don't know, it's like a resistance to fear. My fear started becoming less because of the things I had challenged myself to do. And then I did this for, I don't know, for how long. And then I met my husband online. And it turned out he was one of the best choices I would have ever made. My mind started to say, Prima, you're not always in charge, in control of everything. Look at what has happened to you. You left your job, you didn't die. That business didn't work out, you came online. You're doing this in the middle of a place that most people don't understand even what this online stuff is. You're doing this one person in a country of millions. You met your soulmate online. So my mind started to say, you can do this. So now when a big problem comes to me and the fear comes, I go back and visit the choices I have made and how much I have proved myself that I am not, this fear is not always right. Now I'm at a point where if I'm going to do something big, the fear comes up and I say, fear, come, get in the chair. We're doing this. You know, we've done this. Every time you come up, you tell me I can't do it, and it happens. So let's go. I know you're going to give in. Let's go. And so I'm at a point where I bring fear and I say, fear, I see you, come. Let's go. Like, sit in the chair. Let's go. But I think it takes some actions. It takes some evidence for you to feel like that. But you never feel like that if you never take the first one. For me, the first one was to leave the job. If I didn't leave the job, I probably would have a different experience with fear. When you say yes and you start making these choices, your body will build immunity to the fear, and you will be at a point one day where the fear comes and you move anyway because you've proved to yourself that there is always somehow the way the world has your back. The universe has your back. So I'm at a point where I feel it will be all right. It'll be fine. I'm feel scared and I'm moving anyway, and I believe that it will be okay. And so you don't get there by being scared and not doing things. You get there by saying yes and moving and seeing yourself and not die from the actions. Ruth, I'd like for you to kind of give us, though, the process of how do I move from unfulfilled and maybe scared, anxious, to this place where I feel empowered to maybe step in the calling or the more that I'm called for, and do that with a place of feeling like I'm coming from a divine place of purpose and pleasure and joy, because I just have the experience. I don't necessarily have that process. Like, I couldn't tell you how I moved from that to here, but I feel like you have the formula. Take us through that process and what it looks like, especially for the people that you work with.
Yeah, great. Thanks. I would love to share, actually, referring to a specific client that I've been working with this year.
Okay.
And it very much speaks to what you're saying. You know, it's a very confronting thing to say suddenly, right, I'm just going to leave my job and do something else. But often finding a sense of fulfillment, you know, we can change our outside circumstances and find ourselves still feeling the same way. So the way that I work, I have a sort of a 4-point structure where, working with clients, we work with, you know, on two sides of the same coin. We've got the mental and the emotional aspect. You know, and the mental side of things, we look at things like what's the meaning that you're giving things in your life? You know, what are the external factors that you know, that you're experiencing, and what's the story that you're writing about them? Because what we make things mean and what our stories are is what we're perpetuating in life. And those stories are simply repeating patterns from things that we learned when we were younger. So on the flip side of that mental aspect, the stories, we've got the emotional aspect. And that's things like triggers. You know, what are the feelings that come up? You know, and often with unfulfillment, there's that, because it's that sense of emptiness, we're not quite sure what to fill it with. But we look at things like the emotional limitations. And sometimes, so as an example, you know, I was working with a client who, she's very successful in her business and, you know, multiple employees. And she came to me, she wanted to do something that she felt was contributing more. She wanted to find more fulfillment. And what we actually did through the course of our sessions, we went more into her inner story. And while she was looking to shift her vocation and find, you know, perhaps work in the spiritual field, what we first uncovered was, you know, the way she handled interpersonal conversations at work. You know, she'd feel, and this is what I spoke to earlier, is she'd feel anxious and conflicted to use her voice. Now she's the CEO of, you know, a medium-sized enterprise, but she'd still feel extremely confronted and conflicted in stating her truth and using her voice in that way. And so we went and we cleared, I worked through spiritual teaching as well, so conceptual, spiritual aspects. So we talked through some of that. We shifted the mindset, but we also shifted the energetic holding pattern of those emotions, and they would go back to things that arose earlier, perhaps family dynamics or school dynamics. So without going into specifics. The fourth step, and then if we go sort of the y-axis, we've got the spiritual and the somatic side of things. And that means, the energy that you're embodying. And, that includes things like nervous system, working through the response of the nervous system, like when you are faced with a confronting conversation, how does your body contract? How can you resource your body when it's in that situation so that you can then choose to take actions and speak in a way that is affirming and confident? And so coming back to this example, through doing this work, we're at a point now where quite organically, so her frequency has shifted. The light that's in her face is different. The way she is expressed is different to when we started working together. And now the business that she's in, she doesn't feel an instant urge to leave. She's not trying to escape something. We've shifted the energetic dynamics so that now, a couple of her staff who were more toxic and who were difficult, they've actually quite organically chosen to move on. And she's now recruiting new staff who are aligned with her space. She said that she recently held a leadership meeting, and that the energy of that meeting that she was able to facilitate was completely transformed and uplifted through doing this inner work, through shifting the way that she was experiencing herself and the work, and then projecting that out into the world. And so the goal is still to have that succession plan and to move. We never sit still in life. We're always evolving if we choose to. And so there's still the plan to move into what's next for you. But first we have to get really clear and resolve all the things which, the repeating patterns, which have actually caused us to manifest the experience of life that we're having now. So it's a very liberating process. And as I said, it's multidimensional. We work on all aspects of ourselves. And I invite people to contemplate things in a very safe and supported way. And we don't need to go too deeply into the stories. We don't need to hold on to being a victim or anything like that. We're focused on what the outcome is, what the highest version of the self is, and the highest expression of the self is. And so that's the goal that we move towards, whatever that may look like for each person.
I would like to say that I missed some things. So when you started, you said you have a 4-point structure. I love the example of the client. However, I think I missed, I got lost in the way when we were creating or talking through the 4-point structure. But I understood the first one was getting aware of the stories we're telling ourselves, or what meanings we are holding today from maybe occurrences in the past. I think that's a very good place to start. It is like, what meaning are you giving to things that is cropping up today and stopping you from going where you want to go? And then what I understood is the second one was identifying the blockages, the limitations, the conditioning that exists within us, which may be giving us the results that we have today. I'm not quite sure of the 3 and 4. I don't know if you would love to help me understand that. After I've understood stories and I have identified the triggers or the limiting beliefs or the conditioning that is helping me keep those stories alive, what is my step 3 and what is my step 4? Or are those the 2 steps that I've understood, or am I totally like, you're not offside, Grant? People will be in class, but they're offside. That might be me.
No, absolutely. Thank you for clarifying, because it is, when I work with people, it is a very fluid process. And so what comes up in session is part of this four-step structure, but it will depend on where that particular client is. So, the third step is when we look at our somatics, which is our embodiment. So we look at how we physically are experiencing things. But this also includes habits. How are you, like, what are the habits that you're using to support yourself? Not just mental habits, but actual physical habits, because they're an expression of a mental and emotional aspect. So each of these elements, there is an interplay. But included in the somatic part, so there's what we do in our life and the habits that we cultivate, but there's also the nervous system response and the way that we embody energy. So that's the way that we embody the experiences that we've had in life that we then seem to repeat, because our past creates an expectation for our future. And so we need to kind of break that cycle and retune the nervous system to a state of safety and to a state of ease. A lot of the time people will say, oh, I couldn't possibly speak for myself because somebody might get upset. So that's a mental thing. But then there's a corresponding nervous system response to that, where they contract and they feel really nervous and anxious about having that conversation. And so this is where the interplay occurs. And so then the fourth aspect is the spiritual wisdom. And this is where we get to transcend our limiting thoughts. This, in the middle of these four aspects is the energetic and frequency. So that's where we do the conscious attunements, transmissions, meditations, and things like that, which helps to bring it all together. And in terms of the spirituality, it's simply bringing us into a place of more peace, where we can see and we can tune into that higher part of ourselves. Like you said, and as we practice going through those fear portals, we will be more willing to listen to the wisdom coming from deep within, from perhaps our hearts or our souls, whatever your belief systems are.
Yes, I think I got it. So the first thing we do is awareness, really. I'm going to tell you what I think I've heard, and you can tell me which of that is off. So the first part is, I think, awareness, which is the awareness of what things mean to you, the awareness of the lens you hold today, the awareness of the stories you're holding that have got you the results that you have today. Because most of us have them, but it's subconscious. So we don't understand that the problem is the lens we have. But what we have as the first step is, let's get that to the surface. Let's show you what your lens looks like, because sometimes all we need is to flip around the lens, but we won't flip around the lens if we don't know what it is. The second step is understanding why you believe what you believe. What are the conditioning? What are the old patterns? What are the things? What are the traumatic experiences that are getting you to have this? What are the patterns that are engraved in you that are getting you to see the world you see? Because whatever you see is your reality, and there's nothing wrong with your reality. But getting to understand that it's conditioning, it's patterns, it's things that you got programmed into, it really helps to understand that this can change, And the third thing, as I understand, is there's tools to create safety, so you know that you can create space to change, to self-manage yourself, and to put yourself in the state that you want. So I think after the conditioning, there needs to be, I think there is a point which I probably never go, but there's a point where you get the realization of, this is where I am and this is where I'm going. And so you clearly know like what you want. You don't want this the unfulfillment place, the place of being stuck, and you want another place, which I would love to say no more. I would love to feel like I'm in alignment. I would like to feel like I'm doing the thing that makes it, whatever the thing you want. And so now there are tools to help you create safety, so you can begin to feel like you're allowing yourself to do that thing. That could be self-regulation, nervous system. That could be tapping. That could be whatever the thing you need. That's why she kept saying it's fluid, and I don't know what you need until we talk. And so I think the point there is, she gets her toolbox, she picks the tools that are relevant to you based on the stories and the conditioning that is on you or your life. And the fourth step is accessing the universal wisdom that is accessible for us all. Everyone has universal wisdom. Everyone can make instinctual decisions. Everyone can listen to their heart and more. Everyone can guide themselves better. But we need that quiet, that safety, that whatever she's creating in the previous state, to tap into that. And so the fourth step is now you feel safe enough to tap into your universal wisdom, which also comes with the tools and, things like meditation and all of those things to help you tap into that next level of awareness, which is the wisdom that exists deep within us that we have slowly by slowly learned to cover with whatever. And so what she really helps you is tap into that wisdom, which gives you the empowerment you need to make the decision that you need to make to take the first step towards whatever the dream is, which empowers you to feel the fire or feel the fear and just move anyway, which amplifies the desire that you have more than this fear you're feeling, so that you can feel the safety to take the step while feeling the fear anyway. Ruth, what did I miss in trying to talk through what I think you do? How you do.
That's amazing. Like I said at the start of our conversation, your clarity and your ability to get to the heart of things is just incredible. And what I just want to add to that is that, this process is all about finding our wholeness. It's about accessing and integrating the parts of our nature and our true nature that perhaps we've lost or we've dissociated from throughout our lives because we've been taught to live like this, or we've been taught that it's not safe to speak up. And, so I love the clarity that you expressed that with, and a bit because, that was so, so accessible for our thinking mind. And what we're also tapping into is our aware mind. It's our capacity to be aware and to search ourselves with a non-judgmental curiosity. Instead of looking at ourselves and finding fault, it's looking at ourselves through a loving lens of, what do I need? Where can I grow? And, what will make me more whole? And to find that sense of ease at being at home in yourself. Yeah.
Ruth, I want to think of the way I'm feeling your work. I feel like it's just not the career thing. I feel like your work could improve health, could improve business, could improve relationships. I feel like it improves the whole person as a person, but it's just that for you, your particular speciality or concern or focus is the career bit. But I feel like this work cuts across the human being. What is your response to that?
It absolutely does. And it's funny you say that, because I always, I'm very specific. I'm not a business coach. I help people to tune into their deepest truth. And if you consider that, going into, I suppose, quantum, or the quantum ideas a little bit more, that, our lives are created through the lens of our beliefs, our dominant thoughts. Even our body is like a 3D printout of our dominant feelings, thoughts, emotions, and, and our subsequent health as a result of that. And so when you look at, at that kind of manifestation thing, what we're doing is going in and we're reprogramming our inner landscape, so that the reality and the manifested, what we're reflecting out into the world, and hence is reflecting back to us, is more in alignment. And it's, like you said, more health, more joy and happiness, like the way that you can relate to people, because you're no longer relating to people through a lens of fear or not enoughness or limitation. And so if I feel unworthy, then I'm either going to go through the world hiding because I don't feel good enough to be seen, or I'm going to go through the world demanding that other people validate my worthiness for me. And neither of those are paths to fulfillment. But when I balance myself in that, and that self-acceptance, I start to give myself permission to take up space without needing to prove it. Like, true power is not in control and it's not in force. But I help women to drop into that empowered state, which then, as you said, does flow through into every part of our lives.
I truly believe this work cuts across. Before, I wasn't aware. That was like 3 months ago. I was I'm very instinctual. I really have like a strong gut. And I've always followed those things. But there is a change in me when I'm aware. Being aware and talking to experts who do this spiritual work has helped me to understand my choices and how. What do I choose? What I choose. It's helped me to understand business and why I attract who I attract and why I don't attract certain people who are out of, I call it like the vibration where I am. I have learned to understand that this is helpful as well in my marriage, because before I would probably not want to do something which my husband wants to do. And I would find myself not wanting to hurt his feelings immediately. And so he may want to do this and I don't want to do it. Like my instinct is screaming, you won't be doing that. And I'll be like, okay, whatever. And I would let him do something that I know instinctively I wouldn't, because I didn't want to be this person who was like so self-righteous. But today, if I am instinctively making a decision and he will say, no, why would you do that? Because he's always trying to protect me. I'd be like, yeah, because I want to. And I would say that with love and a smile. And now he's like, okay. But before I would say, no thanks. And I would feel like this woman who is not appreciating the effort. I'd feel like I'm cutting off his hands to offer support, to protect me, to provide for me. But now I'm coming from a place of, yeah, it's my instinct, it's my gut, and I know it's the right decision, and I love you anyway, and I'll say no. And now I feel like I have given myself more permission to say no. It may hurt you, but it will make me love you more if I feel like I am still allowed to follow my instinct and be myself. When now someone shows up and is not a fit for the work I do or doesn't feel aligned, it's moved from I need to save this person to, yeah, you're not a fit, you shouldn't buy my offer. I've given myself permission to say no to people and not feel like I could have helped that person. Whereas before, I tried to help people overcome their limiting beliefs, make the right decision for them. Now I see it as, you're not ready for my work, and that's okay. We're not a fit to work together, so don't buy this offer. I am not trying to convince people that they are worthy of whatever. Now I've moved to a frequency where do you hear the calling on your heart? Is it clear? Do you feel called for more? Amazing. Have you said yes? Amazing. Let's roll. Do you feel the calling on your heart and you don't feel worthy? I am not the person. There is someone else. I am not the person. But now I'm at a place where I say, do you have a clear calling on your heart? Check. Have you said yes? Check. Is your problem the how? Check. Let's go. I can feel like life is much easier now that I'm coming from a place where I know that my instinct is the thing. I am having less need. Like I told my coach, I think we'll try to meet bi-monthly because I don't feel the need to meet every month. Maybe I will start to tell him, let's meet by like once a month because I don't feel the need. Like I don't feel the need for as much guidance and mentorship as I felt before because I feel like I have a better coach inside me. That is my experience. And I am not even really deep in the spiritual world yet. It's been just 3 months of me talking to experts and understanding their process and knowing the things I did subconsciously, now mapping a process and going, oh, that was my instinct. Oh, that was that. And for me, it's really changed my life just interviewing you guys. I wonder what the people you've worked with, do you have similar, like, what do you have? What have you seen happen as like shifts for people that you've worked with? Because for me, it's just really allowed me to radically say no and not feel like I'm hurting anyone because it's my gut and I feel like it's just the right decision to make. And I'm at peace just saying no matter who the person is. I'm like, all right, it's not okay. It's not okay. I am not doing this. This is the decision I'm taking and you don't have to come along. Like I have felt so much clarity in making decisions and moving forward and dropping things. I wonder what the experience is with maybe even you and the people you've worked with when it comes to the shift that people get when they go through this work.
Yeah, I think the key word that you said then was, when you've learned to draw boundaries, you'll say no with love. And that's the fundamental shift in all of the people who I've worked with. And I actually gave a talk on self-compassion last week. And a key aspect of self-compassion is being able to, so there's a yin and a yang of self-compassion. And the yang part is the part where we draw boundaries, kind, loving boundaries. And when we can access and through this work, we actually find that peace within ourselves, again, coming back to the worthiness, coming back to the nervous system regulation and dealing with people-pleasing patterns. What will they think if I say no? These are all the sorts of things that come up when we're faced with creating essentially boundaries. And, maybe saying no to somebody, or again, speaking up when we have a need that we need to be met or considered. And, when you're faced with this sort of thing, our old way of being is that we'll have either really strong, rigid boundaries, and they're created from fear because we don't want to upset people, or we're afraid of what the result might be, but we're also afraid that we need to protect ourselves. And so the energy that we're placing those boundaries and those conversations with is quite charged with our inner fear. And that absolutely shows out. You can see it in any interaction that you have, whether a person is coming from a space of unease and projecting that fear, which can sometimes come across as anger or aggression, versus when we resolve what's unresolved in ourselves, which comes back to trauma and it can be even small traumas. When we resolve that within ourselves, and that need for external validation, that need to be told that we're okay by somebody else, when we clear that, then we're able to speak and share and express with love. We can say exactly the same thing, but with a completely different intention and with a completely different energetic charge. And instead of somebody feeling, you say no to somebody or draw a boundary, somebody, if you say it with fear, somebody might feel hurt, rejected, or confused by that. If you create your boundary with love, I've found that inevitably, and this is my clients' experience as well, like when they start to speak up for themselves or have perceived difficult conversations, which aren't difficult anymore because they trust their heart and they trust that they're worthy and valid of having needs met, or of drawing those boundaries. And that 100% comes across in the communication. And so instead of perhaps feeling hurt or rejected, that person can feel engaged and involved. And I mean, after all, if a friend of ours, if you have a good friend to tell you what they need, you would feel really bad. You would want them to feel safe and to feel like they can talk to you about whatever they need to. And so it just creates that openness and that peace and that safety to have authentic, loving communication.
I love it. I think it's just the place where you're coming from. Is when something is coming out of love and clarity, it just comes across differently than if it's coming from a place of fear or other intentions. And so I really love that. I know you support people you hold people by the hand and you help them through this process of moving from unfulfillment to slowly stepping into a fulfilled life that they ultimately desire. I'd love for you to walk me through how you do that. What are the containers you have back in the back end to help support people through this process?
So if people feel inspired or feel that, there's something in these words that might be able to support them, I'd love for them to reach out on email. And so at the moment I'm working with one-on-one containers. I create what a client might need. And so they can email me. The email address is hello@ruthkemp.co. And we'll have, I think, links in the show for that. But I don't tend to work in a one-off session because this is a journey. It's a journey that people will move through. And so I hold the space and I hold people's hands for that transformation, in whatever capacity that may be.
How long does it typically take for people to move through that process? I'm just trying to judge like how long the one-on-one is, or how long people need to think about for this process.
Okay, well, I've just completed a 6-month in-depth offering. And I'm actually refining that. So we're going to be looking at a 3-month or a 12-week program. That's for quite a thorough and in-depth transformation. I also offer 1 month, if somebody has something quite specific that they're bringing, that we can kind of just go really deep really quickly with, and that would be over a 4-week period. So normally what we do, we'll have Zoom call, we connect, we'll bring in whatever we need, and that might be I share pre-recorded content as well, depending on what people need. So we have meditations, guided energetic activations to help you to bridge into the aspect of yourself that is whole and complete. And then in between those sessions, as part of this deep dive, we'll have voice note messaging, so that anything that comes up for you in between that time, there's some extra support to keep you really grounded in the process and the transformation that we're going through.
I like it. So there's one-on-one, there's you can go for a short. So for example, if you knew that ultimately what you want to promote is a promotion and maybe a raise in salary, and you can't get yourself to have that conversation, if that's kind of a problem, you can hop in for a month and you can talk through the energetics of that, and you can kind of get to take the step that you're wanting to take. So if the process is more like a decision you want to make, but you can't get yourself to do it, I think that's like short term. But there is also room for overhaul, for like really transitioning into a bigger thing, more like I'm fulfilled in this career and I'd like to pivot that to something else. I want to start a business, but I don't feel the confidence to do that. I feel called for more, but I don't have clarity around what that is. Those can be a bit long term. And what I hear her say is she can do anywhere from a month to whatever people need, because it's custom. And so it could be a month, it could be 6, could be a year. It really depends on the special needs of someone. And wherever you are is okay. I'll be putting links from Ruth, how to access her, how to talk to her, how to book a call with her. Do you do like free calls to kind of get to understand if you're even a fit for someone? Okay, cool.
Yeah, so it's probably best. I do offer free calls, so you can book a free discovery Zoom call, and the link is in the description, and that just helps us to also get a feel, because before you make a commitment to working with somebody, you want to also feel that we are the right energetic fit. As you were saying, Prima, I think that as a mentor and a guide, I want to make sure that I'm going to be able to help this person. It's very important that we find that resonance. So you can book a call, and that means also that we can have a chat, about the best option for you, about the best package that I can possibly provide.
I like that better. So there'll be different links. There'll be an email that you can email, but there will be a link. I like that people can sit on a call and feel the energy of the person before they hire them. I like that people can sit on a call and ask questions, and just feel like this is the expert for you, because this is more like soul work, and you don't want to be working with someone that is not a match for your values and energy and everything. When it comes to consciousness, it really has to be a fit, because there's no fake it till we make it. It's the real thing. And so I love that. So check in the show notes.
It's just the energy is so important, because you can list off a list of modalities or various certifications and things like that we might but at the end of the day, it's the person that you're dealing with, it's the individual, and so it's you want to make an informed choice.
Yes, I totally get it. Like for me, I am always scanning for that. There's people who just are not a fit for me, because I am like to the point, blank, spoon is a spoon, not a spade. And so if someone is highly sensitive, I am definitely not going to sign them up, because they'll be very frustrated, because I do not know how to marinate my advice. It's what it is, our offer sucks and we need to solve it. We're building out of alignment and we need to move this way. The message is cute and not clear, and we need to make it clear. And I do not know how to marinate that and make it taste good, because it's just what it is. And so people who are highly sensitive, I definitely know people I want to sign up, because I don't want to hurt their feelings. And so it's very important that there's a fit, a match for what the coach offers versus who you are as a human being. So check in the show notes. There'll be every way you can access Ruth and take the path that feels most aligned for you. Ruth, we're winding up, but I wonder what you have to say to the human being on the other side going, I don't know if I'm ready. I feel cold, but I don't know, there's some resistance. There is some fear in me. I've been wanting to do this for the longest time, but I don't know why I'm so scared, why I'm so uncertain, why I'm so not doing this thing. I'd like for you to end with some words of encouragement for them, or even if they missed everything we said and they're right here right now, what do you want them to remember that they could have missed if they're not about to watch the whole thing?
So much of this comes down to our self-concept. And the reason it's hard to make these new decisions and these new choices or to take new steps and new actions is because these new, sometimes scary choices are out of balance with the sense of self we've always known. They're out of step with our limitations. And so it's always going to be a bit scary to choose a pathway which breaks through a false belief or a false limitation. And so what I really encourage you to do is let yourself notice that fear. We don't ignore it. We don't justify or push things aside. It's to notice it. Notice that it's a part of you. Our thinking mind is only there to protect us. It's a part of our egoic self, which is trying to keep you safe because it doesn't know what you're moving towards. And so be kind to yourself. Comfort that part of you that is afraid of making this choice. And like you would comfort a child, hold that part of yourself as you still choose to make that choice. Follow your intuition and move through those portals that will take you into, the most light, expanded version of yourself, the most, brilliant life you could imagine.
Amazing. There's one biggest thing that you could be doing to help the community, to support the community, because this community it's a dream that is on my heart. It's much bigger than I think I can put my hands around it. And I know that I don't have all of the answers, but the biggest thing you can do for a guest that you see on the show is share their episode with one person that needs them. So if you know someone who is top of career, successful and everything, but they still feel like, is this it? They may be your friend, they may be your cousin, but you feel like every time you probably talk about dreams, they are talking about other things than what they already have. I don't know Ruth, how can I know that someone is successful but feels unfulfilled? Because usually on the outside, they look successful and we think they have it together. So me as someone who is watching this and I'm wanting to share this episode, who should I share it with and how do I know that they are unfulfilled on the inside? I want them to share this with someone, but I'm not clear on how do I know if someone has it all together and they're successful in the books of the world success, but deep on the inside, they feel a void. I don't know how to identify this person myself. I can't. I don't. So how can we guide the listener to share this with one human being?
Yeah, well, so often we tend to hide away the parts of ourselves that we lack. And so, if you have a friend who has, shown an interest in consciousness and interest in exploring questions that are beyond the material, if there's somebody who's started showing an interest in a life outside of work, because that's often where it starts. It's like we start to think that, okay, well, I've been in the rat race or on the treadmill of life. And so people who have, and if it's a close friend, maybe you've had conversations with them that maybe they're a bit bored, and boredom is a really good indicator, that people are usually quite ready to say, I'm bored with my job, I feel like there's something a bit more out there. And, you know, so just share it with anyone who might, because this is also about spiritual curiosity. So it's also, you know, asking the questions about what more is there, you know, I'm a human, but I'm also a soul. I'm not just my physical body. So people who might have, you know, had an interest in documentaries and different books and spiritual teachers and things like that.
I have another way to describe this person. Usually, what I notice is that the more successful you are, the deeper the void. People can start to fill this void with food. So someone might have picked up a habit to just eat and eat and eat and eat. And you feel like they just obsessed with food and they're probably like overweight and heavily successful. People might pick up cars and someone buys a car today and another car the other day, and you visit them and you're like, how many cars do you buy? Or how often do you flip your car around? Like, they can take this and kind of decide they're going to buy cars, they're going to buy houses. It can be a way of outputting or filling this void can be in material things. They buy this and they buy this and they go to this trip and they go to this trip and they go to this trip. But when you talk about the trips, you don't feel like they're doing it because of you feel like they're doing it to feel more successful or to show the world that they have money. So they might say, for example, go on these trips, but you find that they have this desire to show everything on social media. You know, they have this desire to show their love on social media. Does that make sense? I really hope it does. But people have a way of wanting to fill this void with things. Maybe they are really struggling in relationships because they want to get the guy to prove themselves that they're good enough. Or they're using food, you know, and they're just eating, or they're just drinking and they're on the couch with wine every second. Or it's the cars, or it's the houses, or it's the travel that doesn't seem to be coming from a place of I don't know. It comes from a place of I want to travel so I can put it on social media. I want to go with my husband to this place so I can show social media that I am having the love of my life. Or maybe they're just curious with business and they've started going to business conferences, or they've started picking up, you know, going to groups, networking groups. There's either that curiosity or they're in the stage of filling the void with material things. But when you talk to them, it's more they are doing those things to show the world that they're successful. That's how you can know. And you can, with love, share this with them. Hopefully, if they watch this part, they will go, oh my God, she's such a pain. Like, how did she point me out? We need to serve people. We need to help them. And the biggest thing you can do is share this episode with one human being that could use help. They're looking for fulfillment in the wrong places. They feel a void, but they think, oh, I need a new car. I need another man or another wife or whatever the thing is. And we can serve them with just this recording by saying, there's nothing wrong with you, you know? You're fine. You're just probably out of alignment right now. You're probably unfulfilled and you're looking for fulfillment. And there is ways to do that without, you know, drowning yourself in the material things and all of that stuff. That's one thing for sure, which you can do to grow this community, is to share this episode with one human being that you know needs to meet this expert. So, of course, share, rate, review, follow, subscribe, all of the good things. That's how we grow the community. And once the community grows, you give me elongated hands, you give me an elongated mouth. I can go to Oprah and say, Oprah, I want you on the show. Oprah will have one question. How big is the community? You give me those hands to kind of say, the community is 10 million people. And she will say, of course, I want to share my message. You have every hand in this. This is about 5,000 people that have viewed this since the last 2 months when I started. And out of those, 500 are subscribed. If you're one of those people, stop now and please subscribe. It matters more than you think. It gives me the ability to get experts on that I would never dream of. It gives me every opportunity to do the best to reach more people, to save the world. There's so many people with a calling on their heart. There's so many people who feel called for more, but they're stuck in fear because they don't know the how. And this podcast is there to answer that question. The how exists, because every expert has the way they are providing the how to the person who has answered the calling on their heart, but doesn't know how to. But for me to reach people, for me to bring even better experts on, for me to do things, I need to be able to justify why people should come here. And you subscribing, you following, you rating, you reviewing, you sharing contributes in a big way to that mission. And so I want to trust that you will support me on this journey. And I want to trust that we've helped you with this episode, that we've really helped you move from 1 to 2. And I appreciate you for staying with us. And I want to give you your flowers for spending your time with us, because you could have been on, a million other episodes out there, a million other podcasts out there, a million other things, cute cats, dogs, TikTok. You could have been lost in whatever way, but you chose to be here. And Ruth, thank you so much for sharing your life, your wisdom with us, and for offering a hand to help us along our way of answering the calling on our life. We're honored to have had you today.
Well, thank you so much. It's been an honor to share. And I just love your clarity and your passion for the purpose, because, saving the world, that's what we're about.
We're saving the world one person at a time. You and us, I need together. I appreciate you, and I will talk to you very soon. That is it, my friend. To listen to more exclusive interviews like this one, simply go to the World's Best Kept Secret podcast.com and select interviews based on preferred topic.